Shalom, all praise Ba'Shem Yahushai, Ba'Shem Harakakadash. God honors the apostles and elders, great millstone of well. Shalom to the brothers doing the work to serve the truth. Yeah, GMS London, out here again, basically prophesying against this current rulership, this current kingdom that's in place. That basically this whole rulership, this whole age, is coming to an end. And hey, how that's going to happen is through thermonuclear warfare, man, which very recently has become, to the forefront of people's minds because of the conflict you've got going on between Russia and Ukraine. But that's not the only impact. There's a variety of ways people are getting messed up, people are getting jacked up by by this conflict. And it seems the sun's out. It's mild weather, pleasant weather. So it seemed like life is getting back to normal. It's all going to be fun and games. But as it's really been since since the onset of 2020, the year 2020, it's more or less. So yeah, I just kicked up on here. Yeah. What was I saying? But yeah, the year has basically been from 2020. It's more or less been back-to-back events where shit's been getting jacked up. And as far as the dream is really of like 2019 summer, the year 2019, when it seemed like the good times were never going to end. Now we're in a time where it's like what? It's basically you're hearing about one bad thing after another in the news. So people ain't really fucking with the news too tough. But Daniel 12:1, and at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which standeth for the children of thy people, and there shall be a time of trouble, such shall be delivered. Yeah, so that's what we're coming into. We're coming into that time of trouble, and a big marker of that time of trouble is the corrupt, the MOTB, which is described in Revelation 13. And that basically is something that has been in the works for the longest. There's been multiple places around the world where people are already implanting themselves with microchips. You have it in mostly in Scandinavian countries like Sweden, where you have certain companies where they've basically made it so that instead of having like a ID card where you swipe in, you can get an implant, and then you can get credits on it or whatever to basically purchase certain things, use vending machines, whatever. So you've kind of had it there, but you've not had it developed fully to where it becomes a system. And that's something you've kind of seen a skeleton framework of with these track and trace systems, these different systems you had when the lockdown was at its height, or when they just opened stuff up, where you basically had to check in with certain systems. And those things have been passed into legislation, just like with the capability to have a lockdown. It's like they're saying cases are increasing again. Hey, a lockdown can happen again. Why? Because the law's already been passed, and it's more or less become something that's accepted. So people aren't going to kick up as much of a fuss. If it was the middle of like 2017, and then they just tried to do a lockdown just off the back of nothing, people would have had a fit. People would have bugged out. But that's the difference of the times now, of how they basically set things up. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found in the book. Yeah, thy people shall be delivered. And that's talking about what? The so-called among the so-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native American Indians. You got that elect, and then as well amongst the those that are scattered amongst the other nations, because you have Israelites that are scattered. They may not be on the side. They might not be among the so-called Negroes, so-called Hispanics, but they'll look like other nations, but they'll be Israelites according to spirit, and they'll be saved as well. That's a big part of it, and that will kicks off from like Cornelius. But it says, "What? And many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt." And that's the dividing line between those of the elect, who basically stood with Yahushua, stood for the truth, stood for the word, and basically either endured to the end or passed away whilst within the faith. And then you got those that are basically in the world, those that are trying to frustrate the word, or those that are just completely bugged out and gone into some nonsense. But hey, that's the times we're in. Let me go to 1 Thessalonians 5:1. Actually, you know what? Go to this instead. Matthew 24:3. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, "Tell us, what shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world?" And that's a big part of the reason why you currently have these events going down, is because why? It's the sign of the return of Yahushua, who's called, who the world knows as Jesus Christ. Is basically his return. That's something that's been prophesied of, and that's something we're in the midst of observing. Because all the signs, they're basically easily observable in the modern day. You go back a few years, these things have been observable. But as far as for the general populace, they're not going to be turned on to it. They're not going to be aware of what's going down, and it's not really going to be. You can basically show it to them. And it's not gonna it's gonna be dealt with no regard, man. They're gonna look at it like this holds no weight or value. And Yahushua answered and said unto them, "Take heed that no man deceive you." That's the thing. You've had more various levels of deception when it comes to return of Yahushua. Because first of all, one of the key things is knowing who Yahushua is, man, who he's coming for. What he looks like, so you can recognize him, and the word that he taught, the truth that he taught, because he came, he had a mission, and then he fulfilled it, and then and now he's sitting at the right hand of Yahweh Shem Yahushua. But then that's the thing, when you deal with the modern day church, they're completely disconnected from it. They ain't got no awareness of who Yahushua is, who he came for. That's why they ain't got no business. They ain't got no route to guide you to salvation. For many shall come in my name, saying, "I am the anointed," and shall deceive many. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. Yeah. So first you're gonna hear of many saying that they're calling themselves Christ, and that's something you have all over the show, man. You can go on YouTube and just search. Or you can even Google it, just how many people have said that they've basically come as a second coming of Christ, and you're gonna find hundreds of clowns all over the world, basically using it as a way to make money, man, a way to elevate themselves, to put themselves in some kind of level. But they're just men. Some of these guys dropped dead already, man. Or they might have completely disconnected from having any form of faith either. But what it says, "For many shall saying, I am the anointed, and shall deceive many. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars." Yeah, wars and rumors of wars. That's something that's not really stopped within the age when the so-called white man, who is Esau according to the scriptures, has come into power. War is basically the key, the principal reason for America's existence, man. It was born through a war, and it's been in a non-stop form of war, state of war, that's the word, with some nation or another since its inception. And And that's why one of the key cornerstones of America is military. They spend like more than I think like the next 6 or 7 nations after it on their military. They spend more on their military than the next 6 or 7 nations that military spending combined. That's the level to which these guys are engrossed within that warfare, and that's why America is that that sword of Esau, basically the bully, the weapon that's utilized to act out the military aims of these elites that have the war. And that's why, hey, military-wise, these guys are the ones going around and so-called policing the world. But the key war now, the one that's on everyone's lips, the one that's at the forefront of everyone's mind, is Russia and Ukraine. Because now they're saying, like, oh, because that's the thing, is as far as for wars, there's been conflicts going on. Well, the one with the Ukraine flag on right there, so that lets you know already. But there's been non-stop conflicts all over the globe, regardless. For the last good little while, there's been non-stop conflict for the longest. I remember growing up in the 90s on TV, there was a bunch of shit happening in Eastern Europe and the Middle East. The Middle East has been a non-stop war for the longest, man. Afghanistan, America was mired in that until like this year, essentially. And that was just them guys was in there just ejected. Iraq, that shit was some of the longest shit on the face of the planet Earth. Basically, those wars have been they've been happening for the longest. That really lets you know what the times are. See that you've been on trouble, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. Hey, we're seeing that. We're seeing that conflict between nations. That's why you're having what? Economic sanctions. Because those things are really the prelude to war. Because as far as it's until Russia really oversteps its bounds, or NATO oversteps its bounds, you're not going to have that raw boots on the ground conflict just yet. But the monetary side, with sanctions, that's essentially going to choke a country's capability to function. That's why it's like when Iran got sanctioned, them guys were screaming about how they could eat all kinds of fucked up shit. And that's the thing as well, is with the Russian sanctions, the EU, chiefly Germany, and Germany is like the chief cornerstone of the EU anyway. They're the ones that essentially keep the economy of Europe afloat, because they have, they're basically the core of it. They're mired in with Russia. They're tied in with Russia. So this is basically going to be like, oh, they're going to, walk to the, they're going to walk to the beat of America's drum, or they basically and fuck themselves up. It's another fucking Ukraine flag. Jesus Christ, people out here really supporting Ukraine, man. There's people actually flying over to the Ukraine to go and get blown up by by Russian aircraft. Like, that's how invested everyone is. It's actually kind of wild. Because the actual joke is the sheer amount of conflicts that have gone on within like even the last 3 or 5 years that have caused mass displacements as well, mass amount of refugees. No one's been giving a fuck. It's only with fucking Ukraine all of a sudden now it's become a key thing, which is hilarious. Because when it was a bunch of North Africans and East Africans coming over like a few 5 or 4 years back, that was a migrant crisis. But now it's you get paid money by the government to fucking let some stranger into your house. It really lets you know how these things, media basically portrays the perception of things. Uh, Verse 7, for nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And there shall be famines and pestilence. Well, famine as well. Famine is a key part of what's going to go down. 40% of the wheat in the world comes from Ukraine and Russia combined. And those two people, well, Russia's got sanctions on it, so they're fucked. And Ukraine's currently getting invaded. So they, getting wheat crops might not be at the top of the fucking priority list. So you're gonna have a shortage, and as well, if if the shortage gets to an extreme enough level, people are just gonna stop selling it. Then you're gonna have the prices start to skyrocket, or well, they either stop selling it or they start charging exorbitant prices, or both. And then what? There'll be a shortage of bread. And pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. Yeah, all the beginning of sorrows. Because even pestilence as well. You have the quote from Bill Gates saying that there's going to be a worse pandemic that's going to come than C-19, which just hearing it just sounds fucking weird. But hey, you never know. And many no. All these are beginning sorry. Verse 9, then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and you shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. Yeah, and being hated basically for Yahweh's name's sake. Because why? Because of this word that we teach. And that's why you go through the book of Acts, it's non-stop. The apostles basically being fucked over by the authorities, being pursued, being cast out certain cities, certain places because of the word they'll teach them. Because they'll teach them more in the name and spirit of Yahweh Hashem Yahushua. That's one of the key reasons that they'll basically being treated, disliked, shunned, all these things. Because why? The word that we'll teach you. The same thing in the modern day. A lot of things that we teach basically go against the current modern sensibilities of the peoples. They're gonna get all kinds of upset when you say, especially if you say like, oh, only Israel can be saved. They'll start having the average Christian will start having a fit. For my name's sake. And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. Yeah, and that's the thing is when the time of crisis comes, it doesn't make people band together. It doesn't increase the human empathy. All those things decrease. It basically becomes a matter of what? People start thinking about themselves, man. The most it would extend to is family, like close family. They'll just be like, okay, look, I need to do something to make sure that my kids can eat. I need to do something to make sure that me and my significant other are taken care of. They ain't gonna be thinking about that Joe down the street. They ain't gonna be thinking about the fucking the retired, the OAP, in the flat upstairs. They're gonna be thinking like, look, shit's got beat. I basically got to be out here looking after me, myself on my own. That's how real it's gonna be. Because people really think, as far as for now, well, it's still a time of abundance, of where there's more than enough for people to kind of be able to do what they need to do, or at least it appears that way on the surface. But then what? When shortages come, when choices have to be made, when it's a good example is the start of the lockdown. Shit started getting sold out. You had that guy that bought up like fucking a whole garage full of hand sanitizer, and he was like, okay, this is gonna make me a fucking millionaire and set me and my kids up for life. Then he got reported in the news, and that guy had to give it the fuck away, man. Because otherwise, people would have been coming to his house to fucking plant an axe in his forehead, man. People were losing their minds. But that's how it is. When there's a time of trouble, people are thinking about how they can either take advantage of it for their own benefit, or how they can endure through it. 2 Esdras 9:1. He answered me then and said, measure thou the time diligently in itself, and when thou seest part of the signs past, which I have told thee before, then shalt thou understand there is the very same time wherein the highest will begin to visit the world which he made. Yeah, it's basically what? About measuring the time to know what? To know what's going down. Basically looking, observing, and being like, yo, what's going down? Because that's the thing is historians, economists, people that actually have to analyze and observe data, especially against historical times of trouble. People that can look into, okay, what's the history of how did the economy of Rome function, and what was the reasons for the weakening of the denarius, and why was the value of silver lessened, and how did it help in the downfall of the Roman Empire? People look into these things. They'll actually be able to come up with a list of details of why these of things that can negatively impact a society in the long term. And a lot of these reasons, these things that are being found out, they're currently observed in the modern time, man. An overstretched military, man. Overly expensive, overstretched military, over too much land. That's a big part of what fucked over Rome as well. Because they were doing foreign campaigns. Meanwhile, the barbarians were trying to nab Rome. And succeeded like 2 or 3 times before Rome had to just throw in the towel. And now in the modern day Rome, especially with America, you see it. These guys have bases all over the globe. They're involved in a variety of conflicts. And it's like if they get involved with the skirmish, they get involved with Taiwan, they get involved with Ukraine, then there's still Iran to worry about. There's still issues in the Middle East. But these are things that men of understanding will observe. But by and large, the people in the world, they're not really paying attention to it. The most they know is like whatever's on the tabloid newspaper, on the front of the tabloid newspapers, or what they see on the Metro, or what's the other one, the Evening Standard. They're not really doing any kind of digging or research. They don't really know too much about history. You go through school, the most you'll learn is about Henry VIII, World War II, and and a sparse few other subjects. You're not really going to get clued in on why empires rose and fell, and how to work these things out. Why the average person, they're not too bright. The school system is not really about making people think or meditate on certain things or have understanding. It's about producing compliant people that want to integrate into the system. Therefore, when there shall be seen earthquakes and uproars of the people in the world, then shalt thou well understand. Therefore, when there shall be seen earthquakes and uproars of the people in the world, and uproars of the people, especially in Europe, that's been something that's been non-stop. The current wave of unrest of the people is because the fucking fuel prices have gone up. The fucking fuel prices have gone up to where parts of America $6 a gallon. Over here, diesel's like $1.79, and that's like an exponential jump. And there's no, as far as on the horizon, there's no time frame where people are expecting the price to drop. And you had fucking fuel. You had energy prices like a few months back. basically where a bunch of smaller energy companies went bust, and then a lot of people had their energy price, their fuel prices basically go up. Where they're paying for gas, electricity, water, all this shit, and then hey, it's peak because those prices have gone up. So a lot of people's rent's going up as well. You have an inflation. I think they said it's like 6.2% inflation. That's how much inflation's gone up. So people are going to be feeling the burn, man. What's his name? Rishi Sunak gave what do you call it? He alleviated a tiny bit of what's it called? National insurance, but taxes are still going up. So boy, how it actually works out, you know, when I get my next paycheck, I'm gonna have to see if I've been royally fucking robbed. But that's not a surprise. They were giving out fucking millions upon billions of fucking dollars during the lockdown. Anyone with a brain cell knew that everyone was gonna end up getting shafted at like a year, a few months down the line. So it says, then shalt thou well understand that the Most High spake of these things from the days that were before thee, even from the beginning. For like as all that is made in the world hath a beginning and an end, and the end is manifest. Yeah, everything on the face of the earth has a beginning and an end. You can go through the reason why, you know, you have archaeological digs and excavations. It's because why? You've got former kingdoms, former rulerships, former places on the earth where they've basically come to their end, and they got fucking, you know, dust heaps on their head, and that shit's under the earth, man. Them guys have been forgotten. Whoever the fucking leader was called, no one knows, man. You can go around, there's countless societies. If you ask anyone to name, you know, the king of the Persians, outside of Alexander, you ask them to name a king of the Greeks, they ain't gonna be able to name no one. They'll know probably like 3 Roman emperors, and that's about it. People don't really, you know, look into history too tough. It's not that interesting of a subject. They might watch a TV show, they might watch Vikings, they might watch Rome, but they don't really actually do any research, you know. It's the Ethelred the Unready and you know and Ragnar Lothbrok and Ivar the Boneless and all these swell lads. They ain't really gonna be looking into it. Even so, the times also of the highest have plain beginnings in wonder and powerful works, and endings in effects and science. Yeah, endings in effects and science. And that's what's being felt now. Those endings, those things are basically becoming manifest. So whereas, you know, the average person is able to be look around and be like, yo, you can actually tell some shit's going down. It's getting peak. Just trying to maneuver and live your life is becoming a struggle. A while ago, it was, you know, the world was your oyster. Anything you set your mind to do, you're thinking, okay, you know, give it a year, give it a few months, and then you'll basically be able to, you know, to pull some shit off. But now it's like, oh well, you know, put your time and energy into doing certain things, they ain't gonna count to anything, man. You might set up a business, shit gets done, man. Anyone that was doing any form of deliveries, them guys are crying. It's funny, you had the truck protesters in Canada. They should be protesting again because them fucking gas prices must be doing absolute bloody murder on them, man. But hey, now we're in the time where it's leading into judgment. It's leading into the greatest judgments that have been recorded in the book. As such, what? Those things are basically being seen upon the earth. So even so, in the end of manifest. Even so, oh yeah, okay. So verse 7, and every one that shall be saved and shall be able to escape by his works and by faith, and every one that shall be saved and shall be able to escape by his works and by faith, whereby ye have believed, shall be preserved from the said perils, and shall see my salvation in my land and within my borders, for I have sanctified them for me from the beginning. Yeah. So those of the elect, they've basically been set up since before the world was made. They were elected to that duty from the first. That's why it's a matter of what? Of those of the elect. Hey, it's already set. It said what? They'll be able to be to escape by his works and faith. Yeah, because faith without works is dead. Basically, those of the elect are going to be doing the works up until, at such a time as it's no longer possible. That's really going to be a clear sign of who's of the elect versus who's not. Because those that are doing the work, they're basically, year in, year out, whether it's summer, whether it's winter, whether it's raining, whether it's dry, in season, out of season, doing the work over the years. They're not gonna, take a 4 or 5 year break off and go get a degree, start a career, and buy a house, and then come back to do the work. They're basically gonna be enduring throughout. Then shall they be in pitiful case, which now have abused my ways, and they that have cast them away despitefully shall dwell in torments. Yeah, those are basically held, the truth, the word in no regard. Then it's gonna be what? They're basically gonna catch the judgment, the punishment for the actions that they've done. They're basically gonna be be dealt their judgment. Same as for those in the world. They're going to be judged according to their works. Everyone's works are basically going to stand in the end and be judged. Back in Matthew, Matthew 24 and 10. And then shall many be offended. Second Peter 3 and 3. Knowing this first, that there shall come in the last days scoffers walking after their own lust. Yeah. So, and that's something that's been happening for the longest, man. We've had people talking shit, whether on the comment boards, whether in person. We've had people talking smack about this truth, about this word, for the longest. And it says what? Walking after their own lusts and saying, where is the promise of his coming? For since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue as they were from the beginning of creation. Yeah, so they're saying like, essentially, I'm able to go out. I went and watched the Batman. I've got a weekend. I'm doing a weekend trip to Portugal next weekend. Me and my girl getting married. We're having the June wedding. We got the weekend wedding booked for June down in Devon. They're basically saying like my life's continuing as is. Everything's good, man. Everything's like it's all still happening. Like why? Why should I regard anything you're saying? For this they willingly are ignorant of, that by the word of the Most High the heavens were of old, and the earth standing out of the water and in the water, whereby the world that then was, being overflowed with water, perished. Yeah, there was a prior judgment. There was a judgment that happened in the time of Noah, where the earth was flooded, and men outside of Noah and his progeny, all the other lines on the earth were brought to an end, and then Noah became like the new Adam. So that's as far as with the judgment. Yahweh has already exercised a mass judgment on the earth. So that's something that's meant to be of regard. um, 2 Peter 2 and 4. For if the Most High spared not angels that sinned, but cast them down to hell, and delivered them into chains of darkness, to be reserved unto judgment, and spared not the old world, but saved Noah, the eighth person, a preacher of righteousness, bringing flood upon the world of the ungodly, and turning the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah into ashes. Well, it says what? If the Most High spared not the angels of sin, but cast them down into hell, man. So yeah, basically, Israel is those angels that have been put into those chains of darkness, into the flesh. It says what? Spared not the old world, but saved Noah, bringing in the flood on the world of the ungodly. So that's a prior judgment, and it's being brought up. It's something that should be held in regard, because why? And turning the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah into ashes, condemn them with an overthrow, making them an ensample unto those that after should live ungodly. Yeah, so basically the judgment was dealt against Sodom and Gomorrah, which was for what? For all forms of vile acts that are perpetrated in the modern day, man. Those same acts, why they got judged, and now, applauded and treated as brave and heroic in the modern day, man. That's basically what? Ignoring the example. Because why? In all these examples, it's what the judgment went out, man. Okay, back in chapter 3. So 2 Peter 3 and 6. Whereby the world that then was, being overflowed with water, perished. Overflowed with water, perished. But the heavens and earth which are now, by the same word, are kept in store, reserved unto fire, against the day of judgment and perdition of ungodly men. But yeah, as far as for this current judgment that's going to play out, in the time of Noah, it was through water, and now it's going to happen through fire. And that fire is going to be what? Thermonuclear fire. Kept in store, reserved unto fire, against the day of judgment and perdition of ungodly men. Yeah, basically what? The destruction of ungodly men. And that's essentially what you're going to have the Lord doing. It's going to be the says in 2nd Ezra 15, the one will hold my tongue no more as concerning their wickedness. So it's a matter for Yahweh Hashem Yahushai. He essentially had it running for a minute, where there was, the wicked had free reign to do what they're going to do, which, they still do to a certain extent. But then what? It's going to be a thing afterwards where all those acts, everything that's basically been put in the ledger, that's going to have to be paid for. Because that's, as far as the kind of modern mindset towards these things, well, now it's just the do as thou wilt spirit. Everyone's basically fulfilling all the lusts of the flesh. They're fulfilling whatever desires, whatever carnal things they want to fulfill. They just pursue it with no limit. And that's what society will congratulate them for that. But when dealing with Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, he's basically had it where he's been observing, he's been watching, all the wickedness has been going out, and essentially he's been like, okay, cool. So this is how this is how people have been operating. The judgment's going to play out, and it's going to be a complete and total ending of this current age, man. This current system and method of how the heathen have ruled, of how now you have what the basis of men, where he's got everyone basically moving on his vibration, man, in complete and total wickedness, man. Whereas any form of righteousness people are completely averse to it. You try and deal with any kind of ancient norm, people are going to be looking to to rip your head off, man. They're gonna even if like they might not even hear the whole conversation. They'll just hear certain things and have an emotional response. That's why it's what the current system, the mindset. Everyone's basically within the same mind frame, man. They all look at this place, they hold it in regard, man. They've been raised within this system, so this is where all their ethics and morals are based on. Meanwhile, the truth has been the same for the longest. And Malachi says, "Well, I am Lord, I change not." The laws ain't changed, man. The truth ain't changed. Daniel 7:25, and he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand unto a time and times and the dividing of times. Yeah, he's basically what, speaking great words. Because one of the biggest things is what, the saying the Most High don't exist, and then even then, if you have, you're trying to find the truth, you're gonna have just stumble upon that big rock of that big complete stumbling block of confusion that is Christianity, where you're gonna have no understanding or manner of finding the truth through that. The most you can hope is what, to stumble upon the truth, but really for the elect, the Lord's basically got you taken care of, because he'll have you come to it some way somehow. What did it say? Think to change times and laws. It's funny as well, because this weekend is when the clocks go back forward, so we're into British summertime outside of daylight savings. So that all that just basically throwing everything into a state of confusion. That's been what Esau's done. He's had the pride to think he can just reconfigure everything. But there's ordinances for a reason. Isaiah 29:16. Surely your turning of things upside down shall be esteemed as the potter's clay. For shall the work say of him that made it, he made me not. Yeah, you're turning things upside down. It's basically, in the long run, it's going to hold no weight. It's going to hold no value, man. All that like right now, everything. You've got even with the high holy days of the current society, like Christmas, Halloween, New Year's, Easter. All these things are when we go into the kingdom, they ain't going to be celebrated. These are all wicked high holy days. We're going to have all the righteous high holy days have been set up within the scriptures. That's what we're going to be dealing with. That's what everyone's going to be dealing with. Because as far as for now, Esau's basically got everyone under his vibration. This high holy days. Imagine they've got Chinese New Year in the eastern part of the world. Meanwhile, they'll still celebrate like New Year's Day. They'll still have fireworks going on. They'll still have celebrations, whatever. They'll still hold it in esteem. Because why? The whole world's under that same vibration. 16. Saying, so surely your turning of things upside down shall be esteemed as the potter's clay. For shall the work say of him that made it, he made me not? Or shall the thing framed say of him that framed it, he had no understanding? And yeah, that's what you do with Esau. He's a creation. He's basically trying to outdo Yahweh Hashem Yahushua and say, okay, the way you had it set up, that's all completely off. We're gonna now come through with a whole other system. You got the new form of calendar, where we're using the Gregorian calendar, which is complete and total confusion as far as how that was set up. That shit was just set up through the whims of men. There's no, when you have the righteous observation through what, the new moon, then that's actually how you keep track, of the times. But then, that's the thing with Esau. Everything's basically about what? Frying off all forms of ordinances and having it all just moving how he desires it. So back in 2 Peter 3. So that's in 2 Peter 3 and 8. But beloved, be not ignorant of this one thing. The one day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is one day. The Lord is not slack concerning his promise, as some men count slackness. Yeah. So with the Lord, 1,000 years is as a day. So when you deal with how long current rulership has gone, since Esau came back in through the Renaissance, it's been 500 odd years, man, since he really had the rule and had power over this place. 500 years and change. And then meanwhile that he's came back. Meanwhile, after he's come back into prominence, it's not really been that long. It's been about half a day. But because of essentially, I'll read it. Ecclesiasticus 8:11, because sentence against an evil work is not executed speedily, therefore the heart of the sons of men is fully set in them to do evil. Yeah. Basically, if people are able to pursue, whatever their wicked desires are, and there's no judgment for it, then they're going to be emboldened in it. They're thinking their mind is going to be set that wickedness is the norm. And that's really what we've had with Esau. He's able to rule. He put the so-called Negroes, he had Jacob, the southern kingdom, in hardcore bondage. Was able to fuck them over and turn them into merchandise and use them as a human resource to build up America, the might of America. And there was no judgment, there was no punishment meted out. As such, then it's like, yo, I'm just gonna double down. And that's really what you've had. Esau's been doubling down and continuing to pursue his desires. Read this as well. So Romans 9, start from 18. Just start from 13. So Romans 9 and 13. As it is written, Jacob have I loved, but Esau have I hated. What shall we say then? Is there unrighteousness with the Most High? The Most High forbid. Yeah, simple as. Because that's a big part of why Esau has a problem, man. Why the so-called white man has an issue, with this word. Why he's basically doing all in his power to frustrate matters, the truth of prophecy, essentially, to try and have himself come out as a victim. Because he knows why. He's hated by the Most High. The Most High has basically allowed him to. He's used him as a whipping stick against Israel. But ultimately, he's the one that's going to be taken out. So, verse 14. What shall we say then? Is there unrighteousness with the Most High? The Most High forbid. For he saith to Moses, I will have mercy on whom I will have mercy, and I will have compassion on whom I will have compassion. Yeah. So the mercy and the compassion, that's been reserved for Israel. You go up earlier into the chapter, it'll go into all the things that basically are for Israel. So these are the fathers. Is what to whom protect what? Yeah, verse 4 it says what? The adoption, the glory, the covenants, the giving of the law, the service of the Most High, the promises. All these things were basically given unto Israel. Israel was the one who had mercy and compassion given to them. Meanwhile, Esau had hatred. So then, it is not of him that willeth, nor of him that runneth, but of the Most High that showeth mercy. Yeah. Because as far as it's even for Israel, Israel's fallen short. By and large, other than Yahushua, everyone else failed spectacularly. That's why the sacrifice of Yahushua was needed for the rest of Israel to get into the kingdom, and basically be able to get that second covenant, which included grace, which allowed us to actually achieve, getting into the kingdom, man, and then getting those perfected bodies. The runneth compassion, showeth mercy. Verse 17. For the scripture saith unto Pharaoh, even for the same purpose have I raised thee up, that I might show my power in thee, and that my name might be declared throughout the earth. Yeah. And Esau's the modern day Pharaoh, just as back during the time of Moses, you had what? Pharaoh, where he had his heart hardened, and where he basically was put into a state where he would continue to resist, so that the Lord could basically show and exhibit more of his power. That's why when Israel came out of Egypt, Egypt was put completely on smashing. Egypt was destroyed to a point where it would never recover. Then what? It was everyone, all the other nations, it was the fame of it. The name Yahweh given fame, and what? The Israelites as well, man. They were given fame. Because why? Everyone knew, like, damn, okay, so this is the extent to which their power was willing to go. Okay. So it says, mercy. So, verse 17. So, for the scripture saith unto Pharaoh, even for the same purpose have I raised thee up, that I might show my power in thee, and that my name might be declared throughout all the earth. Therefore hath he mercy on whom he will have mercy, and whom he will he hardeneth. Yeah. So just as it's the same purpose by which the current system, the EU and NATO, the American sphere of influence, has basically been increased in fame is why. So the even more fame will be put upon the name of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai when it gets brought down. Thou wilt say unto me, why doth he yet find fault? For who hath resisted his will? Nay, but O man, who art thou that repliest against the Most High? Even if you say like, oh well, the Most High put the Spirit on you to do these things, God, this still got to bear the judgment, man. just as Israel did. Israel didn't manage to escape. Israel is still found in the hand of the one that stole them currently. Then what? How much more so the heathen? If Israel didn't escape, now that Israel's at a point where our punishment's been achieved, we're no more going into captivity. Then what? It's time for the heathen to get a taste, man. The pendulum swinging back. So, nay, O man, who art thou that repliest against the Most High? Shall the thing formed say to him that formed it, why hast thou made me thus? Hath not the potter power over the clay of the same lump to make one vessel unto honor and another unto dishonor? And really as simple as that. If I can put together a comic where I have a protagonist, a hero, and an antagonist, a villain. And then that villain he can't jump off the page and choose to become the hero. Likewise, the hero can't choose to become the villain. They're basically going to have to play out whatever role is other assigned for them within that story. They've got no means by which to do anything. It's the same thing with us on the earth now. We've basically been appointed our roles and positions, and Yahweh Hashem Yahushua is going to have them play out. This is the the play. This is the field of the Heavenly Father, to where He's executing His will on the earth. And hey, everyone's got their role to play. They might be an extra, they might be playing the antagonist, or they might be one of the heroes. But everyone's got to do the job that they're assigned. And there's no getting out. And another one to this one. Verse 22. What if the Most High, willing to show His wrath and to make His power known, endured with much long suffering the vessels of wrath fitted to destruction, and that He might make known the riches of His glory on the vessels of mercy, which He had afore prepared unto glory. Yeah. Enjoy, and that's what links up with what you call it, Second Peter 3, where it said just because you had your little season, you need to keep in mind that a day is as a thousand years is the day with the Most High. That's why it's like it's much long suffering, but as far as Most High is concerned, it's not been that long since Esau's been on the scene. That's why it's like for him, even if it was to get another 10, 50, 150, 200 years, it's really time of no significance. Meanwhile, I'm gonna drop dead by that time. Before prepared unto glory. Yeah, it says what long suffer the vessels that fit to destruction, and that He might make known the riches of His glory on the vessels of mercy, which He had afore prepared unto glory. And that's what essentially Israel has waiting for them. It says what? The vessels of mercy. They've basically been decided. Most High has decided, I'm going to have mercy on Israel, and I'm not going to have mercy on Esau. That's as cold as it gets. So as far as Israel is concerned, they're just going to be recipients of mercy. That's why it even says in Romans 11, I believe, that all Israel will be saved. Because why? Even the wicked Israelites that have to taste the second death first, they're still going to come back, in their right mind, with the laws inside them, as the children of the elect. They're still going to be able to get into the kingdom. They're just going to have to taste it, experience that death by pain first. Even us, whom He hath called, not of the Jews only, but also of the Gentiles. Yeah, the Israelite foreigners, those that weren't among the the circumcision, those that were scattered around all the various parts of the world, even currently are still scattered. They're also going to be saved. As He saith also in Hosea, I will call them my people, which were not my people, and her beloved, which was not beloved. Yeah. Jake had that time. That's the thing. Esau never had a point in time where he was ever the chosen. Jake had, they received, they basically received the promises, and they got taken into the land. But then what? They kept fucking up. So they got judged. And they got to the point where the Lord's like, I ain't gonna deal with you lot. That's why what? There was a mediator needed someone in between to basically mend the relationship. Which is what? That's what Yahushua's role was. And that's why Yahushua is put in such a position of prominence. Because why? Yahushua was needed essentially what? For Israel to be brought back onto the Most High. And then what? After the judgment, then what? We'll get beamed up, we'll get perfected. The elect will get perfected. 2/3 are going to get wasted. Then they're going to come back in their right minds. Okay. So back in 2 Peter 3, verse 9. The Lord is not slack concerning his promise, as some men count slackness, but is long-suffering to usward, not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. And yeah, even for all coming to repentance, that's something that can't even occur. Because as far as there's those that basically been appointed to to be confused, to be left in the dark, to where they're essentially gonna have to catch their judgment. Isaiah 6 and verse 8. Also I heard the voice of the Lord saying, whom shall I send, and who will go for us? Then said I, here am I, send me. And he said, go and tell this people, hear ye indeed, but understand not, and see ye indeed, but perceive not. And that's really what those are on the elect. They've basically had the block on them, to where they've been set a level where they can they can be having a conversation with you, chopping it up. You can break the truth down to them, 7 ways to Sunday. They're still not going to be able to get. There's basically a gap that's been put between them hearing the word and then receiving the understanding. Because as far as for the word, it's real simple. You read it, it's plain as day. But what does it say? Verse 10, make the heart of this people fat, make their ears heavy, and shut their eyes, lest they see with their eyes, and hear with their ears, and understand with their heart, and convert and be healed. Yeah. It's something that's been, a block's been put on, the stoppers, they've been denied access. Their key card doesn't have what's it called? It's not, they haven't got, they're unverified, man. They've been denied, denied the means by which to access it. And that's why, because if they could access it, then what? They'll be converted and be healed. And that's not what they were appointed for. And that's how easy the word is. Simple as if it's been appointed for you, you hear it, then hey, the spirit will just work. And then what? There's that spirit quick enough that will just make you bang. It will take root. Verse 10, make the heart of this people fat, and make their ears heavy, and shut their eyes, lest they see with their eyes, and hear with their ears, and understand with their heart, and convert and be healed. Then said I, Lord, how long? And he answered, until the cities be wasted without inhabitant, and until the houses without man, and the land be utterly desolate. So basically, it's something that's going to take place up until the point where then said I, Lord, how long? And he answered, until the cities be wasted without inhabitant, and the houses be without man, and the land be utterly desolate. So yeah, it's basically a matter of this is playing out until the time of the end, man. Until the judgment's basically played out, destruction's taken place, and then people are going to be allowed to see, in their last moments that, hey, those are the men. Because it mentioned Hosea before. Hosea 1 and 10, yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as a sand. I need to charge my phone now. Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured nor numbered. And it shall come to pass that in the place where it was said unto them, Ye are not my people, there it shall be said unto them, Ye are the sons of the living power. You're gonna have it's gonna come to the point where everyone's gonna recognize that, you know, the so-called Negroes, Hispanics, those are basically looked at, shunned, held in no regard, and dealt with as you know, as chaff, as low lives, as degenerates. They're basically going to be it's going to be shown that what they're the chosen, man. Those are the people of Yahweh Hashem Yahushua. They're the ones he's essentially chosen as well, as his man, to put his name upon. So back in 2 Peter 3. 2 Peter 3 and 9. The Lord is not slack concerning his promise, as some men count slackness, but is long suffering to usward, not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. But the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, in the which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. The earth also and the works that are therein shall be burned up. Yeah, so the day is coming as a thief. Because why? Even though there's signs, when it's going into it before, it's evidently clear that, you know, it's not the way everything's going down. Life is not going to return to the so-called normal. It's not going to return to the so-called normal that everyone knew, man. The endless, never-ending summer of 2019. That's basically done away with, man. That kind of state of life isn't going to return. So then what? But people are still pursuing it. People are still trying to, you know, whatever plans they've had, whatever desires they've had, they're trying to continue it. That's why in Matthew 24 it said what? They were given in marriage right up until Noah shut the ark, right until the very last, man. Right until the, you know, it's the midst of the judgment. That's when people are still going to be pursuing and trying to do everything they wanted to do in their life. It says what? Seeing then that all these things shall be dissolved, what manner of persons ought ye to be in all holy conversation and godliness? Yeah, that's the thing. Is all these things are going to be dissolved. All that's basically been built up currently. You know, this current system, everyone that's held in esteem within the system, all of it's going to come to an end. No one's going to be looking at like, oh, you know, it's in the kingdom, no one's going to be thinking about Jay-Z. No one's going to be thinking about any form of celebrity. They're going to be thinking about Kanye. They're going to be thinking about anyone of any regard on this side, because any kind of gain, any kind of what's the word? Not even any kind of fame, any kind of regard, any renown on this side, that doesn't convert into the kingdom. In the kingdom, you're dealing with a whole different order of things. The acts over this side that bring you fame, that's what's gonna bring you the shame in the kingdom, and that's the people that when you having their head down, the jakes when you having their head down in the kingdom. That's why.
That's how the Lord said it. Basically, we'll steam everything as a potter's clay. You know, the turning of things upside down. So everything's going to be turned right back on its head. And according to the order it's meant to be. Right now, we're living in a world where it's so funny because this world, everything in the world, to the normal, to the naked eye would seem like this is how it's meant to be. Whereas when you peel back the layers, you really understand how everything works systematically, like nature, for example. This is we've been born into a world where it is at this point has taken a lot of manipulation over the years. That's why within the last decade or so, there's been a thing known as cancel culture, where they've been cancelling everyone from the bloody, housetops to the valleys, man. And why is that? Because they're setting a new standard in place. So there's a whole new mindset and a whole new culture of doing things. So that's why things people spoke about, 5 years ago, 2009 or something like that. That's not 5 years ago, but they said in 2009, 5 years ago to that decade, basically they were cancelled for it, right? And they basically said like, oh, you're crazy. You can't say this. A lot of people had them coming out and they're saying they basically agree. Most later for victim of cancel culture, being Kanye West with the Grammys. Now they're saying that, oh, you can't perform because the way you behave with your wife. The guy sitting in the bed with his former wife, taking pictures, saying, I just slept with your wife. But they're gonna cancel him. And really, I don't give a shit about none of them. I'm just speaking to the world in which we live in. They're gonna take the side of the women. They're gonna say, no, this is wrong. You can't have nothing to do with the women. But this is all forms of the manipulation. So that as we go on forward in this time that we're living in, the mindset of the people will be set in a way ready to take the new old order, basically, which Biden recently come out and say that they're looking to implement.
Ecclesiastes 2. What's up from 13? No, 12. And I turn myself to behold wisdom and madness and folly. For what can a man do that cometh after the king, even that which hath been already done? Then I saw that wisdom excelleth folly, as far as light excelleth darkness. Yeah, that's what wisdom. That completely outdoes the left-hand side of all facets, man. And that's the thing, is this is a society that's built off the left-hand side. And what, going into the kingdom, that's going to be the right-hand side. That's going to be wisdom, truth, justice. Those things, that's think about on the way. There's a bus stop, the royal courts of justice are up the road. So, man, ain't really no justice in that place. That's not a place you can go to find justice. As far as within this whole kingdom, in this whole earth, right now, truth and justice outside of where the brothers are, that ceased to exist. That's the kind of place that this is, man. This is where folly is set in great dignity.
Yeah, but also it said it talks about light excelling darkness. The time that we're in right now speaks about in the book of Isaiah, it says, gross darkness shall cover the people. And that's when the light is really going to be manifest to show that it excels the darkness. Because the time we're heading into is the time of Isaiah 33:6. Wisdom and knowledge shall be the... Am I even in the shop? Wisdom and knowledge shall be in the stability of that times. Right? So basically, what you're going to have is people going to be stabilized by wisdom. Right? And that's what's going to excel out the darkness. So when, like for example, right now you have the energy prices going up due to the conflict down there in Ukraine with Russia. Right? All these different things, food shortages due to a lack of fuel. That's the next thing on the cards. Because first and foremost, over here in the UK, this is an island, right? I don't know if they told you that everything you get in Sainsbury's, Tesco's, Waitrose, wherever you shop at, they don't go to the back and pluck it out of the garden and then present it to you on a plate and say, yo, here's your food. Or they give it to you with some groceries for you to take home. All the food is imported from overseas, right? I know people are not as smart. If you look at a packet of the groceries, it'll tell you where the food is grown, man. So it might tell you that, the oranges come from Seville, this comes from that place, that comes from that place. In order for you to receive those goods, they need to be imported by lorries, right? Vehicles need to bring them over. Now, the price of fuel going up is going to make it more difficult for those lorry drivers to get from point A to point B, right? Now, even on top of that, you just had the Brexit happen as well. So you have all these different all these different factors into play, which will all culminating, and this is the funny thing, because Esau can say, yeah, this is happening. You can rationalize it. You can say, yeah, this is happening because of this. That. No, it's happening because it's the prophecies of the Heavenly Father. No? It's when you open the book of Matthew 24, Luke 21, Mark 13, all right, books in Revelation, books in Isaiah, what you're going to find is that these are all things that were spoken of by the prophets of old, and they're coming to pass right now, right? But if you have eyes to see, you'll see it. If you don't, you won't. Because it says, as in the times of Noah shall it be. They were eating and drinking and giving in marriage. And that's what gross darkness, the darkness that people are in. And the light that excelleth is for those that are in the know, the illuminated ones, on the right hand and on the left.
Verse 14. The wise man's eyes are in his head, but the fool walketh in darkness. And I myself perceived also that one event happeneth to them all. You know, darkness straight. That's nothing but confusion. Then said I in my heart, as it happeneth to the fool, so it happeneth even to me. And why was I then more wise? Then I said in my heart,
what happened to both of them? They died, right? And that's like people rationalize like that as well. They say, well, you know, dealing with the faith, you know, someone comes into the word and they say to themselves, well, I mean, these people, you know, they lack of faith will tell them, I've got all this wisdom. I've got all this wisdom. And I'm dying like the people that I'm telling them I'm suffering like the wicked are suffering. This doesn't make no sense, basically. That's how people rationalize it and say, well, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. So they'll go out and do everything. But there's something greater than that.
then said I in my heart, that guy is fucking smart. Then said I in my heart, that this also is vanity. For there is no remembrance of the wise more than of the fool forever, seeing that which now is in the days to come shall all be forgotten. Yeah, there's countless people that have been forgotten in the annals of history, and even more they're going to be forgotten. Right now, there's people that they might have hundreds of thousands, millions of Instagram followers. That's all going to mean nothing but dirt real soon. These things, all the things that are held in regard, there's been previous kingdoms, previous rulerships, previous times where there have been men have held in legendary amounts of renown, and now they've been forgotten. Now they're fucking nobody. Who the fuck knows their name? Seeing, for there is no remembrance of the wise more than of the fool forever, seeing that which now is in the days to come shall all be forgotten. And how dieth the wise man as the fool? Therefore I hated life, because the work that is wrought under the sun is grievous unto me, for all is vanity and vexation of spirit.
Yeah, and this is really him too, because if you go through the whole book of Ecclesiasticus, this is King Solomon basically talking about accumulating great amounts of wealth, having everything at his disposal basically. You could go out, he had gardens, he spoke about it, he said he had like exotic creatures from different lands, all this different stuff. So if there's anyone done it on a high level, it would be King Solomon, because he did it better than anyone. But he said he sat down with all the accumulation of things and said all this vanity, all right? And that's what he's really speaking to. The only vanity, and that's what, as you go to the end of the chapter, that's what the 12th chapter tells you, you know, serve the Most High. Oh, keep his command. Keep his command. That's the greatest thing of all, basically. So, above everything is to live a virtuous life. And Paul breaks it down and says to be basically to live a life of contentment, right? So, a lot of people running around trying to know the meaning of life. First off, the meaning of life is in accordance with the order the Heavenly Father set you up to live within. But at the same time, they believe they accumulate things and mansions and this, that, and other. But the reality is you have to find a place of contentment within yourself. And that's what we found in this faith. Lord willing, the Lord don't take it away from us. There's a talent that the Lord gave us, and everything we look at, we approach from the angle of it's as it should be, right? In this moment, everything's as it should be. Something happens, that's how it's meant to happen for the spirit. And that gives us comfort, knowing that the Lord is the architect of all things, basically. All right? But then also knowing the times that we're in, all these things that are happening presently right now, happening to the 12 tribes of Israel, you know, so-called Eagle, Judah, Benjamin, Levi. I don't know if the brother showed you, but you know, Judah, Benjamin, Levi, you know, so on and so forth, the tribes. Basically, everything that's happening to them is basically down to what? The prophecies of the Heavenly Father. So the same way that we're being set up for a curse, a proverb and a byword in the midst of the people, we're going to be exalted above everyone, right? Starting with the elect. And that's what we're looking for. That's our hope right now. So all these things happening as our faith being manifest.
Verse 18, yea, I hated all my labor which I had taken under the sun, because I should leave it unto the man that shall be after me. And who knoweth whether he shall be a wise man or a fool?
And it wound up being a fool. So that was true to the point, right? He understood what it was, because you had Rehoboam basically come up in his place and take his throne, but then in the hands of Rehoboam, the kingdom was split. So even that's further proof. It's like everything you're laboring for is going to be passed on to someone else. And who knows who you can say to yourself, I'm going to give them private school and I'm going to do this, I'm going to make sure they're, you know, brought up in the right way. But it's down to the Heavenly Father whether they go within that way. Because you read all throughout the book of Kings, right? Chronicles. It chronicalizes. It forms a chronology. I'm not even going to bother playing with that word right now.
I don't know why you engage with that.
It keeps a record of all the kings, all right? And you have some of them that were righteous, some of them that were wicked. And they would have had a father that was righteous, would have pulled down all the pagan temples, all the altars, all that type of stuff. But then guess what? Their son would have come up in their place, and then they would have done what? Set up the same thing the father just pulled down. And start worshiping the same God their father took down. So what does that show you? It shows you the vanity of it all, right? And that's why it says about, you know, the sins of the father not passing on to the child. Because you have to sort after your own righteousness, right? But you have to do everything
Extra positive.
First Kings 12 and 6. And King Rehoboam consulted with the old men that stood before Solomon his father while he yet lived, and said,
now this is the beauty of it all. Rehoboam had men,
sage counsel.
yeah, will go into.
I just wanted to say that.
Yeah. he had some serious wise men in his council that told him the right thing to do. They stood with his father. His father was regarded as the greatest king that ever lived. You have people coming from all the corners of the earth to come and sit and speak with him and get to know and hear his wisdom that they heard of from many seas away, many lands away. Right? And he had that level of wisdom within his grasp, basically. Right?
While he yet lived, and said, how do you advise that I may answer this people? And they spake unto him, saying, if thou wilt be a servant unto this people this day, and wilt serve them and answer them and speak good words to them, then they will be thy servants forever.
Yeah, and that, what is a king? This is what people get misconstrued because of history. History parts away, but also the more up-to-date definition of what a king is. Right, it's got everything misconstrued. Because a king is ultimately a servant to the people. That's why they have a scepter. A scepter represents the shillelagh, or you know, the stick of a shepherd, basically, to lead the flock to greener pastures, basically. Right? When you have a shepherd that has a flock, what they do, they use a stick to basically put them to keep them in the correct path, basically. And that's the same thing in King's do. That's to be a service unto the people,
To herd the sheep.
to herd the sheep.
But he forsook the counsel of the old men, which they had given him, and,
So he didn't go with it.
and consulted with the young men that were grown up with him, and which stood before him.
So he went to his people that he grew up with and said, okay, what do you think actually? Which shows you the level of everything Solomon spoke of. It shows you it come to pass. Why? Because why would your why? I'm sure Solomon would have told his son, look, these are people. They would have been his teachers. There's a word I'm looking for. His mentors. The people that raise up a child. Tutors. They would have had him under. He would have been under their tutelage, right? And they would have shown him the way in which he was meant to go. But he got of age and then felt that crown rest upon his head and said to himself, I ain't gonna listen to them. Let me talk to my guys. This is a new generation. We know what's going on more than what they know. These old ones don't understand. Right? And that was a mindset he took into place.
He went on TikTok, he went on Instagram, he put a poll out.
Yeah.
He said like, yo, should I fuck these niggas up? Should I be cool? Should I show them who they're dealing with or nothing? And he said unto them, he said, which had given him and consulted with the young men that were grown up with him and which stood before him. And he said unto them, what counsel give ye that we may answer this people who have spoken to me, saying, make the yoke which thy father did put upon us lighter? And the young men that were grown up with him spake unto him, saying, thus shalt thou speak.
Wait, who said that? The young men said, make the yoke that your father.
No, that was what Israel was asking for.
Oh, okay.
Well, I think it was Jeroboam who came basically on behalf of the rebellion. Where is it? Verse 9. It was spoken to me saying, which yoke? Oh, okay, verse 10. And the young men that were grown up with him spake unto him, saying, thus shalt thou speak unto this people that spake unto thee, saying, thy father made our yoke heavy, but make thou it lighter unto us. Thus shalt thou say unto them, my little finger shall be thicker than my father's loins. And know, whereas my father did lade you with a heavy yoke, I will add to your yoke. My father hath chastised you with whips, but I will chastise you with scorpions. Yeah, the guy moved with the wisdom of a fucking, I was going to say a rat, but a rat's wise than a net, man. He moved with the wisdom of what's a dumb animal, man? A chimp, man. Man moved with the wisdom of a chimp. Because, it says what? So Jeroboam and all the people came to Rehoboam the third day as the king had appointed, saying, come to me again the third day. And the king answered the people roughly, and forsook the old men's counsel that they gave him, and spake to them after the counsel of the young men, saying, my father made your yoke heavy, and I will add to your yoke. My father also chastised you with whips, but I will chastise you with scorpions. Wherefore the king hearkened not unto the people, for the cause was from the Lord Yahweh, that he might perform his saying, which the Lord Yahweh spake by Ahijah the Shilonite unto Jeroboam the son of Nebat, which I believe was saying the 10 tribes would be the garment. Yeah.
And that shows you what? That's the will of the Heavenly Father. At the end of the it goes into what Solomon was saying about the vanity of it all. Because the vanity was that I've set you up, I'll put you in the best position ever. But guess what? It's the will of the Lord at the end of the day. The Heavenly Father decides what's going to happen. And in that situation, he decided that I'm going to rend the kingdom from you and part it in two ways, right? And this is where we're at today. This is why we have the sign, man. Because it shows you that there was a split that happened with the southern kingdom and the northern kingdom, right? And that was due to what? This prophecy coming into play. So it shows you the Heavenly Father had a greater plan, right? Had a master plan, basically.
So when all Israel saw that the king hearkened not unto them, the people answered the king, saying, what portion have we in David? neither have we inheritance in the son of Jesse. To your tents, O Israel, now see to thine own house, David. So Israel departed unto their tents. But as for the children of Israel, which dwelt in the cities of Judah, Rehoboam reigned over them. Then King Rehoboam sent Adoram, who was over the tribute, and all Israel stoned him with stones, and he died. So he tried to check him, but that just, them men were done.
You should have sent him out there with an army.
Yeah,
man. Just send him out there naked.
Yeah,
Give him
just
some
like,
money.
yeah.
Guys, they just shot him to death, man. Just gunshot him.
Done him out, man. Therefore, King Rehoboam made speed to get him up to his chariot to flee Jerusalem. He had to scarp him, man. Man had to dash out. So Israel rebelled against the house of David unto this day. And it came to pass, when all Israel heard that Jeroboam was come again, that they sent and called him unto the congregation, and made him king over all Israel. And there was none that followed the house of David, but the tribe of Judah only. Yeah, so he basically lost 10 kingdoms because he was a baboon, but it was through the Spirit, and that's why it was truly vanity, man, truly folly. Because even one of the greatest things that the house of David was essentially going to be the kingly house for all time. It was basically set up that way. And then what? That's even that was lost for a period of time, but that was also for the sake of prophecy.
Yeah.
Because why? It's going to Amos.
They're meant to be that, as the prophet said, man. The house of David is meant to be the highest, ruling above everything, man. But they lost all their honor due to this guy's mishap and judgment. That shows you how the Game of Thrones is it's a game. There's what do they call it? Weights and balances. Everything has to be done within measure. It has to be weighed up.
Because funny Game of Thrones. There's what's his name? Tywin Lannister has a term. I can't remember the exact context. But he said it's like you have a gloved fist, essentially. So you can use a glove to do what's the word? Not
Concuss?
Nah, not concuss. It's diplomacy, essentially. And then if not, then under the glove there's a fist. For force is needed. So he basically said you need to kind of let people feel that they're getting a good deal out of basically serving them. Which is what the old men essentially said, like, say you're gonna nice them up, these guys are gonna ride out for you to the end. That's the thing is he could have gave them 5 good years. If after they flipped on them and switched it back and made the yoke harder, they would have borne with it for the sake of those good 5 years for a while. That's why it's a complete lack of understanding. But that's why it's what that youth, the pride of youth, the vanity of youth, essentially thinking like, oh yeah, I'm basically gonna get all that I desire. I'm gonna get this as well. You also
yeah, I'm looking for it right now.
mine's kind of
Funny, when I left my house, it was like 17 degrees, so it's gonna be 11 in an hour.
yeah.
Weather.
It's purely just because the sun's out.
So it says,
The sun's so empty.
so spring sun. Proverbs 15:1. A soft answer turneth away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger.
Yeah, you saying just like, my little finger's gonna be doing more than my dad's loins. That's all the
And his
understanding.
dad's lawyers were well known.
Yeah.
He's part to play in it.
All the understanding of a wow, man.
Look at a little bit more. The tongue of the wise uses knowledge aright, but the mouth of fools poureth out foolishness.
Yeah. As far as that's diplomacy, part of being a king. That's the thing. That's why even with this is something that Esau knows. That's why he has the smooth words on lock.
Legalese, plausible deniability.
All these things.
There's a numerous amount of phrases that basically go into that about knowing how to utilize words and phrases for the sake of getting the better of the people. That's why throughout this whole pandemic, people's morale maintained at a certain level. Because why? They gave them hope. They never outright said like, look, you ain't gonna be able to do this, you ain't gonna be able to do that. They more or less said, look, there's some fools number, and then when they got addressed with a hard question, what did they do? They took a they squirmed, like they took a legalese stance of, well, we'll see, they basically kept the people nice.
Bro, what's his name? There's footage of what's his fucking name, man? Of Boris Johnson winding up on a Jamaican auntie in the rave they were having. He said, "Oh, I didn't know it was a party." These man can just lie outright, man.
But I even showed you wise words. Wise words
Yeah.
really work.
Because as far as
Not wise words, sorry, but soft answer.
yeah, because that's just kind of like, it's like maybe he did know. Nigga, this guy knew exactly. But that's why it's as far as these things, and that's the thing is a lot of these things people aren't aware. They're not really clued into how these things go down. That's the thing. This is wisdom. And if you really go into you go into school, you're not. These aren't things that are going to be taught. School is really drumming you into a worker bee. That's all the purpose of it exists for. It's to make you a good little cog in the machine. Actual wisdom, those are things, as far as for these elites, they hoard it to themselves. That's why they have private schools. That's why they have elite level colleges and universities. Because those are basically that's going to be the strata where you're then going to start interacting with these things. A lot of these things are just going to be, you have to be born among a certain ilk. You need to be from certain families. You need to be in certain circles. Because if you're not, then you're going to be a peasant. And you can have as much fucking money as you want. You can graduate from certain places, but you're gonna have to be sucking up to these people to try and get a crumb. That's why a good example of that is what the gentleman with what's his face's from, man, Guy Ritchie, man, with what's his name, Matthew McConaughey, or however the fuck you say it. Where he's an American, but he goes to I think Cambridge, and he basically he spends an exorbitant amount of time, among the aristocracy, basically trying to get himself into a position where he can hope to have his kids come among that or get himself time to get himself something. But then even then, what he was doing, it was nicing people up. But then still, it's not easy to get amongst the aristocracy. That shit's a myth nowadays.
The funny thing is, that story really plays into, I don't even want to say the name, but there's a family from North London that, from what I was told by a brother, they were in with all of the politics. They were basically the what's the word I want to use? The conduit, between the blue bloods.
The bridge between the
So they basically they funnel everything into the underworld through this family, individuals in that family, and it's the same kind of thing he was playing. He's playing that role where he can be seen in their eyes in a favorable light for the sake of the great game.
1 Corinthians 1:18. For the preaching of the cross is to them that perish foolishness, but unto us which are saved it is the power of the Most High. For it is written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise and will bring to nothing the understanding of the prudent.
Yeah, the wisdom of the wise and the understanding of the prudent is dealing with Esau Edom, which today is known as the so-called white man. Alright? Everyone has a biblical nationality. And this man presently is ruling over the earth due to the blessing that his father Isaac gave him. Right? And it was told that he used the wisdom of the sword. That's really his wisdom. It's by destroying, right? And it's like a criminal strong arming you, basically. That's how he utilizes his wisdom, right? And the Heavenly Father says he's going to bring it to war to basically show that it's nothing. And this is what we're seeing right now. I just saw an article where they have right now, no one ain't seen, I'm sure no one ain't seen the Queen in a couple of days, right? Like a couple of weeks. Yeah, her being wheelchair bound, and there's an article already come out a couple of days ago about Prince Charles saying he's got sausage hands and feet, right? Fingers and feet.
He's got what?
Sausage hands and feet. Shit is swollen, basically. It's like greatly swollen. I'll show you the picture. Yeah. But they're getting jacked up. So this shows you the Heavenly Father's asking John 30 about the curses to lift the blocks. Yeah, innit? About the curses basically going on to our enemies. Because we're in the time of the end. We're in the time of the redemption of the children of Israel. That's why all these things are happening upon the earth. Right? Because you have people saying these are apocalyptic times. I did a video on this article dealing with the blood rain that fell before the Passover last week, Wednesday. And basically, you had a woman saying like, she saw the rain, the sky was orange, and the rain was like dirty or whatever. And they said like, what's going on? And then she said she wanted to go out. She turned around and said to herself, no, I'm not even gonna go out. She said, I'm gonna stay. And she said, I've been out all day. Like, so it must have been the evening. So, and then you had various people who were saying things like, this is just crazy. Like, they won't say it outright, but they feel something in the air that something ain't right. They quickly read this. So this is Deuteronomy 30:7. And the Lord Yahweh thy power will put all these curses upon thine enemies. Right? Now, who are enemies? When you go into a couple chapters before, Deuteronomy 28 basically tells you that serve, enemies. But in Psalms 83 plainly outlines all these different nations upon the earth. Right? Esau, Edom, Moab, Ammon, right? Ishmael, all these, the Hagarenes, Canaanites, etc. They all are enemies, right? So it says, and on them that hate thee, which persecute thee. So the Lord is basically going to put all of these curses upon those that hate him and persecute us. Right? So who hates us and persecutes us?
Yes.
All these different nations. Right? And it's more to the point of the elites of different nations will do these things, basically. Right? But in them doing that, there's a trick. It's funny because I was speaking to this someone I was working with, and he was saying like, he's an Italian guy, probably a Jake, but he lived in South Africa. He said, yeah, the acts of my ancestors make me ashamed to have white skin. I was at work, man. So you know, when it's thinking, bro, if you're gonna say some shit like that, you're probably a Jake. But there's no way I can say that to him. I was just kind of like, yeah, man, I hear you. You know what I mean? But he really like empathize with Jake what the energy he's giving me. He's talking about how nice Africa is with different people, right? Telling me about, I know about Nigeria, I know about Ghana, what tribe, all that type of stuff. But basically, they're talking about, the natural herb, all this type of stuff. An Italian guy. But basically, moving Italian, but Italian nonetheless. But basically to the point of, what was my point? He was ashamed of it, right? He was actually ashamed of that. Regardless, he benefits it, even though they didn't do it, right? But a lot of people are taking advantage of these things that happen, right? They ain't turning around and saying, man, that's abominable what happened to them people. We should give them back for that. The reason why there's a first, second, and third world is because of the sucking of the resources of various nations. This kingdom, the way it runs and functions, wouldn't be able to work as such if it weren't for the plundering of all these different nations, and mainly for the work of the so-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Americans and tribes, right? Because really America and the world over got great wealth from slavery, man. That was the real, game changer in terms of wealth, in terms of garnering resources. The fact that he put the nation of Israel into captivity, and he took all of our wealth, all of our wisdom, all of the slaves who was in slavery. How many inventions did they create? the radiator, traffic lights, all these different things, right? Read on a little bit, and down. Nah, that's it. That's it.
First Corinthians 1 and 19. For it's written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise and will bring to nothing the understanding of the prudent. Where is the wise? Where is the scribe? Where is the disputer of this world? Hath not the Most High made foolish the wisdom of the world? Ezekiel 28 and 7.
But let me, you said made foolish the wisdom of this world. Oh, go on.
I read it before. It was a precept to it. Reading for context. Behold, therefore I will bring strangers upon thee. Ezekiel 28 and 7. Behold, therefore I will bring strangers upon thee, the terrible of the nations, and they shall draw their swords against the beauty of thy wisdom, and they shall defile thy brightness. Yeah, all that wisdom. When it comes to the judgment, when it comes to these nations basically, shooting missiles, they ain't gonna be of any significance. There's no way you're gonna be able to come up with some scheme or hatch some plan to make these things happen. And what the Most High said he's made foolish the wisdom of the world. That's why this is the thing, is as far as everything Esau's built, all the wisdom, all the inventions, all the technology he's been given, all the means, you can put machines up in the sky, you can shoot fucking missiles into space, and drop down and fucking decimate the land. There's internet, there's all forms of wireless technologies and all these different things. Regardless of all that, it's basically being torn down through the word. All that he's built is basically coming to an end because of what? Brothers going out on the highways and byways and teaching this word.
This word is a double-edged sword. So like he had the angel with King David when he went against the Lord and basically had a consensus for the whole of the nation of Israel. You had the big angel with a sword shooting down people. And it's the same thing that the moment we come out here and start pushing the word, basically it's like the bat signal going on, man. But it's just like boom. And then the angel comes down and starts shooting. Somewhere within the kingdom of Esau, something's getting fucked up, man. Just how Satan fucked with me this morning, man. There's a reason why I'm late, man. Man, Satan fucked with me on the way home, man. Different levels. Knowing you realize after you to the point, it's like, this is Satan, man. But the same way we get those things where you just have a numerous amount of things that happen. It's the same thing for them. That's why I mentioned Prince Charles has a swollen hands and feet. Queen Elizabeth, she's wheelchair bound. Prince Philip is dead right now, right?
Fucking dead.
I was gonna say he passed away, but I'm not mixing my words for him. He's dead, man.
He's done it, man.
He's dead. He's gone. He can be a virus, man. He's gonna be the new variant. He's gonna have his DNA inside. Yeah. Making them food requests. But that's my point. Look, the Lord is doing heavy work for him. And a lot of times you ain't see it. The same way we're getting blessed in I know it's the seagulls love to do that when they come here. Fucking air current.
Yeah, the Friday.
Yeah. But basically, it's quite spiritual.
You just stop and just chill. I'm like, who the fuck? I'm like, ass.
I remember I seen last time, I was afraid of just chilling, man. What's going on, man? We ain't got no food for my guy. But yeah, that's the Heavenly Father plaguing them. He's sending plagues upon their people. You got more? Yeah, Isaiah 47 as well. Yeah.
For after that in the wisdom of the Most High, the world by wisdom knew not the Most High. It pleased the Most
Yeah,
High.
the world Bible was like a lot of people seek their own ways to justify the Heavenly Father. So they'll say, yeah, obviously the Most High, he would be like this, he'd be like that. They take a modernized approach onto the Heavenly Father. The Ancient of Days, you're going to take a modern approach to the Ancient. This man existed prior to anything on earth. The earth existed. But you're going to take a modern day, a trendy, it's like saying, I want my Heavenly Father to wear flares. And that's just weird.
Yeah, I was like, what?
That's great. Who thinks she's wearing it as well? But I don't know.
She must feel bummed right now.
Yeah, I know what I'm thinking. I'm like, damn, man. I didn't even mean to say that. But yeah, like, but basically, yeah, man. But that's a trend, right? Trends pass. That was bell bottoms in the 70s. But now it's like, that was a modern day approach towards the power back then. But that's how everything goes. Lord, you can't measure the Heavenly Father by the things of the present time. He is an ancient of days. He existed before everything was made, right? And that's to be respected as such. But the people after wisdom do not the Heavenly Father. They make it, they don't know that the Heavenly Father, all the things written in the laws, you have people come up and say, you believe in that Bible, you believe in that book, you know what it says about being homosexual in there, you know what it says about women, you know what it says about this, you know what it says about that. Well, that's where it is, all right? And we're living in a world now, you have women are getting upset because the guy in a college right now is kicking an ass swimming, man. All you have to say was, I'm a woman, and take hormonal, go on the hormonal yeah, that's the word.
Replacement therapy.
That's it, therapy. And basically now it's a woman legally in the eyes of the world to make it complete. Right? And basically,
Man said he can be in chains and fluffing his willy left and right. That's what one of the girls was saying in the interview. It's like, oh yeah, shit. Like, he's in the changing room. It's kind of unsettling. Like, bro, that's wild.
shit. So it shows you, man, that, listen, this is what a lot of people don't realize. You've opened Pandora's box, so to speak. That's what you've opened. You've opened a box of things that you thought it sounded good. Yeah, women have equal rights to men. Listen, you're really finding out how deep the rabbit hole goes now. Because really what you did is you went against the normality of things. When you open the door for confusion. Because women ain't equal to men. You have your domain, and we have our domain. Like you, a man, like when you deal with careers in this day and age, most men do careers in what? Blue collar kind of work, labor stuff, or I'd be a very stereotypical kind of manly job. And then it'll be roles of leadership where they have to take a logical approach to things and maybe, go by the facts and figures, right? Whereas a woman would take more of a nurturing role. She'll be a good at cultivating different things. Right? Now, the moment a woman steps over into a role of leadership, there's a lot of compromise that has to be made in terms of her femininity, right? She has to take more of a masculine approach. Now, that's confusion. That is great confusion. And once you open up box, now you're going to see how deep the rebel is, right? Because you just had President Biden say he wanted to put 2.1 billion into gender equity. I don't know what the fuck that is, but that don't sound good. Because I never heard a phrase known as gender equity in my life. I don't know what that is, but that sounds like. let me show you the meme. It's a funny meme, man. This is what it sounds like. Gender equity. Okay, right here. Oh, sorry.
You can't have people starving in prison. You just can't have it. Not by the million. Something will have to happen.
So it says, the year 2034, the Cash Me Outside Girls president, there are 67,298 genders. It's illegal to have an opinion. I'm the last straight male. This is my story.
That's a fucking nuts. everything behind. As far as all the confusion. It's funny as well because they said the Gen Z, these guys are basically
Destroying the world.
well, not even that. They're like rebelling against the whole all the kind of super social justice nonsense.
Speak a bit louder.
They're basically rebelling against it. So that's why you have it's like the guy who made the meme about super straight. That guy was Gen Z. A lot of them on TikTok, they're just saying like, yeah, pulling out all the bullshit of all this modern stuff that they've got everyone following after, man, all the confusion. So it's kind of flipping back where they're going to be clashing. And then it's that's the thing is now they're pushing through laws. It's funny because I saw an article that was saying like, let me just read the scripture. So I'm going to get into that. So verse, maybe 1 Corinthians 1:21. For after that, the wisdom of the Most High, the world by wisdom, not the Most High. It pleased the Most High by the foolishness of preaching to save them that believe. For the Jews require a sign, and the Greeks seek after wisdom. But we preach Yahushua crucified, unto the Jews a stumbling block, and unto the Greeks foolishness. But unto them which are called, both Jews and Greeks, Yahushua the power of the Most High, the wisdom of the Most High. Because the foolishness of the Most High is wiser than men, and the weakness of the Most High is stronger than men. Yeah, the foolishness of the Most High is outdoing anything. And that's the thing, is that's the meager forms, you know, that have been granted upon the earth. That's basically incapable of comprehending or dealing with what the Most High is. Most High is beyond what we're at. The most we're able to achieve, it's like shackle. So as such, that's why it's like being emboldened in any form of pride within your wisdom, any kind of level you get to in the world, then you're bugged out, man. It's confusion, and that's the spirit of the world, man. Everyone's in their own mind, thinks they're on some super kind of level. Ecclesiasticus 3:24. For many are deceived by their own vain opinion and an evil suspicion. For many are deceived by their own vain opinion, and an evil suspicion have overthrown their judgment. Yeah, people out here really deceived by their own vain opinion. It's prided for people to just go out and spew a bunch of nonsense. It's like if you I can't remember where I was cycling last night, cycling home. It was like I was hearing some of these fucking conversations people are having, and I was like, bro, I was like, especially women, it's like have a drink, it's just like spewing, just a bunch of waffle. Just because it's nice to hear the sound of your own voice, man, and to speak, it makes you feel important. It makes you feel like there's a reason for you, worthwhile, for you to exist on the earth.
But this is what Matthew 24 tells you, in the time as it shall be at the time of Noah, eating and drinking and giving in marriage. And that's really what you're saying. I thought about this. Because it's like, what are people really doing on earth? What they do, like Instagram, for example, they eat, like they'll go to the ends of the earth to do what? To eat and drink and give it and have sex, basically. Like there's nothing greater to what they're actually doing.
Pleasures, they just all the lust of the flesh, fulfilling every desire the flesh has.
So they're not really like. So what form of conversation are you gonna hear? You ain't gonna hear nothing.
There's no kind of. It's just gonna be some talking about work. Sound blah blah blah. I'm like, bro, you listen to it. I'm like, you're not gonna have any kind of meaningful conversation now. And anyway, I think it was in Fight Club. where he says like you can actually, you know, it feels like people are actually listening instead of just waiting for their turn to talk. Maybe it was a different video. I can't
That's
remember.
and that's what you said about waiting for their turn to talk. I was at one bloody place, and basically that's what I realized. It's how people talk. You're not even listening. You're not engaging. You're saying a conversation back and forth. You heard what someone said. You're taking it in, and then you're providing something basic on that. It's basically, I want to say what I want to say. Let me say it. I don't care what you said. Let me say it. Like, that's how a lot of people are.
They just want to, you know, display how smart, funny, interesting, charming they are.
Yeah, that's it. Basically.
Funny because I was watching everyone preach video. We're going over like girls' dating profiles and then giving guys to rank them by the dating profile. Then there was one girl that put in some of the wackest jokes I've ever heard in my life in there. And he was saying like, look man, girls ain't wit like that. They ain't funny. They ain't got any form of game. They ain't got no lines.
Can't even lie. That's what makes me appreciate the girls that I grew up with. I'm like, damn, like all these women I meet, none of them have a bloody sense of humor. But it's like everyone I grew up with, like all the girls I think about were fucking funny. Like you can chill and battle. Like you know, you grew up and you really got into the world and you got into the world, Larry King. You got into the world and you realize that wow, like the set of people take a bit more shit. But basically it's like the people you obviously it's for the sake of Lord, you know, for the faith of Lord willing, being part of the elect, you have to be part of the collective set of people. Right? You tell what's the saying, as the saying go, it takes a village to raise a child. It's the environment. So the environments that we've been in cultivate a certain type of individual. So like I said, like meeting some of these bloody broads, meet some of these broads today, and they got no fucking character, no personality, ain't been through nothing, can't tell a joke, can't catch a joke, too fucking emotional. It's ridiculous, man. But this is the degradation of society. Society is at its lowest. A lot of people don't realize because they seem to be on the onset of immortality and this, that, and the other. New conventional ways of doing things. People think that, you know, we're on the precipice of something great, but they're neglecting all the other things that are happening in the world. For example, now everyone's talking about Ukraine. Ukraine's been fucked up for how long, man? They've been battling since 2014, man. Crimea, different things happening throughout the course of time. Now, then they're going to turn around and say, what will they mention next? Yemen, when it's appropriate.
No one's even talking about Yemen.
That's it.
It's like Yemen.
The only time it'd be brought up is when it's relevant.
No, bro.
If they want to use it for leverage, to leverage some type of situation, that's what they'll talk about. But the point is that there's something fucked up going on around the world all times, man. Not just fucking Ukraine, man. But it serves a great meaning. I even got into it with an individual I was working with, and at first I said, what's your opinion about it? He said, like, that's their problem. I said, alright, cool. You know what I mean? That's because, you know, I've expected that. Then afterwards he's saying, like, Putin is not right in the head. He's a dictator, you know, that thing. I said, bro, this is propaganda, you know, because the main thing they're doing it for, they're just about to set up the Nord Stream 2, then boom, warfare starts, propaganda. We're just in a pandemic 2 seconds ago. Now this is all the bubble right now. But a lot of people are not aware of it.
Right? That's the thing is during the war, even before war, that propaganda system is running. No matter what.
Propaganda mill, yeah. Right, running.
Because it's a matter of everyone's mind needs to be in a place where they all need to be in accord for when the strikes start going up, when the troops have to move, you know, when your sons have to go and die, they need you to think there's something heroic happening. Yeah? When all it is business interests.
Some hard-nosed business sitting at a table, they got, you know, different delicacies.
Telling your son to go get his fucking brain blown out. That's you know, congratulations, man. You're a hero. You wore a blue and yellow shirt. You said you stand with the Ukraine, and you're sun stood, then he was lying down, and he never got up again.
You had Zelensky going into different hospitals, giving people, you know, a badge of honor, saying, yeah, you did well. He's like, fuck off, you wanker. What are you talking about? Saying, man, did well. This guy is a former actor and comedian, man. A lot of people are not aware of things like that. He serves to a greater means. He basically chose the right guy for the job, is what I'm saying. He chose the right guy for the job. So with that, man, hope you're edified, man. Say all praises to Yahweh. Hashem, Yahushua, Hashem, Baruch, Number one, I'm going to say, awesome, man. So I want, man.